let's get into it. Now, we are starting with Pierre Rodriguez versus uh, Josephine Knudsen. Now, that's a funny last name. Alright, so, by the way, guys, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will be doing a upgrade on the channel in the middle of this card to the next one. I will possibly show the face cam. I will do some other stuff, I think, but yeah, I'm gonna learn how to do a YouTube channel more, and we'll get into it. But as of right now, we have Knudsen versus Rodriguez. Again, funny name, Knudsen. And yeah, I mean, I'm not even like, aside from the fact that she's lost twice, I'm not even looking at that. Just on the skills alone, I feel like Josephine Knudsen is going to be able to outstrike Pierre Rodriguez, and she, even on top of that, she is younger, so she has more time to improve, while Pierre Rodriguez is going to be the next stepping stone for most prospects, honestly. And I don't really know too much about Knudsen, to be honest, but I do know that she is valued as a better prospect, and I just think that she is better from what I've seen. I don't really know what else to say other than I think that she looks cleaner on the feet and even on the ground. So I'm going to go with her by decision. As will most, as you can see right there. Ramon Tavares and Davy Grant. Now, what we have here is this one's a tricky one, to be honest. I was thinking about picking Davy Grant, and I'm still considering it because he does have some decent submissions. He really does. I mean, his, what was it, inverted triangle against Rafael Assunção was crazy, and he did get robbed in pretty much all of his split decisions against Yanez and someone else that's not coming to my mind, Daniel Marcos, I believe. Both those two guys, I feel, robbed Davy Grant. Let me just double check that. Yeah, it was both, and even Marlon Vera was more competitive than people remember. So it's really tough to pick, but 38, almost 39. I don't know if I'll rely on him being slightly smaller. I think that even though it says 5'8", I think he is actually slightly shorter. So I think decision again for Tavares. But David Grant is a really good I thought he was a good underdog, but then I realized that he was a favorite. So that's interesting. Wrong fight there. Miranda Maverick versus Jamie Lynn Horth. We have, yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a decision again, but I mean, Jamie Lynn Horth, aside from the fact that she is insanely tall, so, you know, she could probably get some good rangy shots and try and play a technical kickboxing game. Aside from that, she doesn't really have a whole lot in her favor. And, you know, I think that Miranda Maverick, she could maybe get a finish if she really goes for it with her boxing. She really tries to close the distance, but I see this being maybe a 29-28. I think that she won't really justify her huge favorite status just because she, I mean, for one, women's MMA fights usually go to decision, but number two, she is way shorter and she's not going to be able to close the distance too well, I feel like. So I honestly think Jamie Lynn Horth is going to do better than what people think, but ultimately, Miranda Maverick's going to get it done. And we move on. Again, wrong fight. Miles Johns, Felipe Lima. Now, with this one, I think that Felipe Lima is all around better. I think he is competitive in the boxing, Miles Johns, but he is fighting these older guys. What was the name of the other guy that he most recently fought? Douglas Silva de Andrade. I don't know how I forgot that, but he was 39, I believe, and then Cody Gibson was 36. I'm pretty sure. At that time, maybe 37, 38 now. Yeah, I remember. I think he's 37 now. He's winning against guys that are older. Nobody actually really rates these wins very highly. John Castaneda beat him, so, I mean, Felipe Lima, he looked way better, and he actually surprised me getting a choke and a short notice up a weight class against what was it? Naimov. Yeah, Muhammad Naimov. And that was crazy. He's on a longer win streak. I think that he's gonna get it done probably in a second round sub. And I think most Tapology fans are probably picking that, but I mean it's a good pick. It's a good one. Maybe round three, maybe round three. Maybe Miles Jones will rock him and then he'll sort of just accept a decision, but I think Felipe Lima's gonna get it done by sub. And then we have Sean Woodson. I mean, let's just be honest here. Everybody's picking, almost everybody is picking Sean Woodson because he's longer, he's way rangier. It makes no sense that he makes 145 pounds. He's 6'2", 78 inches of reach. I don't know why I was stumbling there, but then we have Fernando Padilla, who actually does compete pretty well with those attributes. But I mean, we saw that he was actually. I thought that Sean Woodson lost to Alex Caceres, but we saw that he is able to keep the range pretty well, especially early on, and he's a good point fighter. He doesn't really have a lot of finishes in general, so I do think that he's going to get this done by decision. He is exactly what his nickname says, a sniper, and he is not necessarily a KO sniper, but he does a good job at being a decision sniper, I guess. So, decision. Nope, decision. Woodson. Drakkar Klose, Joel Alvarez. Now, this one is interesting because even though we all know that Joel Alvarez is going to win this, and he definitely deserves to be in the rankings if he gets this done, I have no idea why he isn't after his last win against Elvis Brenner. That looked amazing, and he only lost to Arman Sarukian. Otherwise, he's been on a crazy win streak if you don't count that loss. And I'm not saying you shouldn't count the loss. I'm just saying excusing that loss or dismissing it, he has nothing but wins, really. I know that I'm pretty sure, has also lost to Demir Ismagulov, but he's not in the UFC anymore. They cut him, so I honestly don't see, aside from Arman Sarukian beating him that one time, why he's outside the rankings, in the official rankings. But moving on from that, the real question here is how will he finish him, or how will he win? Because let's be honest, we're mostly picking a finish. Most people on Tapology, most fans, a lot of people are saying round 3 TKO, and I could see that, but I also see that he could get a submission because we have seen that he has some good jiu-jitsu. I believe it was a Darce against, yeah, it was a Darce against Mark Jacasey, and overall a huge favorite. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, he's way huger. If you saw him in the weigh-ins, he looked huge in comparison, and just the reach and the height, it's like I see this being similar to the Elvis Brenner fight, although in the Elvis Brenner fight, I believe that was a round 3 TKO. And I see this being more early because Drakkar Klose, I don't see him having a very good chin. I know that like, he got into a crazy exchange with Beneil Dariush, and that's how he got rocked badly, but he got rocked so badly and knocked out so badly that his mouthpiece was flying out of his mouth, so almost. And I thought that he lost to Joaquim Silva, who's much shorter, honestly. I know that it was close, and I know that people are going to disagree with me here because I'm pretty sure it was unanimous. Let's see, yeah. But I thought that Joel Alvarez is going to piece him up, and I think maybe an uppercut, so I'm going to say round 2, TKO. And then we have Michael Johnson, Ottoman Azaitar. Now, Ottoman Azaitar, Weasel said it best. He's fighting way too little in his prime years, while Michael Johnson is fighting as much as he can in his out of prime years. So this is a speed difference, in my opinion, for Michael Johnson. I thought Ottoman Azaitar looked so slow in comparison to Matt Frevola. And I understand Matt Frevola is decently fast, but he's nowhere near as fast as Michael Johnson, in my opinion. And Michael Johnson, yes, he's been implementing grappling much more lately, but I could see this getting a finish, especially since that they both kind of go for it most of the time. So I could see this being a finish, and he does have the reach advantage and the height advantage, although it looked quite minuscule when they were actually facing off in the weigh-ins. So, am I going to pick this by decision or finish? It's about 50-50 to the Tapology fans as well, so that is quite interesting. I do think that maybe Ottoman Azaitar will gas, and then Michael Johnson can get around 3 TKO. So, yeah, I don't see it being a sub, and most of the fans are suggesting that as well, with 76% and 24% for Azaitar and Johnson both saying pretty much nothing on the submission side. So, gonna have to be a round 3 TKO, just because I think that Ottoman Zaitar is gonna gas in the third round due to maybe grappling with Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson taking one or two of the rounds through grappling, and then Ottoman Zaitar gassing for the big meaty hooks that he's gonna try and land on Johnson, and it's ultimately gonna lead to him getting a pity TKO probably. Round 3 TKO. I mean, Tuko Tokos, he really doesn't deserve his spot in the UFC. And he, what was it, a submission against Omar Sy? Yeah, oh yeah, sub. And I mean, that guy is more of a well-rounded guy. Neville Sterling, he is much more of a striker. He's kind of like a kickboxer. He really is a kickboxer, honestly, and his attributes suggest that as well, with a somewhat crazy reach for light heavyweight. And I think that it will be a clear round 1 KO, similar to, I honestly see it maybe being an elbow, similar to Mingying Zhang getting his KO over Ozzy Diaz. I just feel the similar vibes to that one, so gonna have to go with him there. It's a pretty obvious pick, no-brainer. And I am very interested in this fight, honestly, because I've heard a lot of different opinions. Some people are saying, oh, well, Adrian Yanez is actually going to surprise some people here because he's actually more well established. He's fought better competition, and he has better fundamentals with the boxing. And Daniel Marcos, he has a better jab, in my opinion, and you see that Adrian Yanez has a problem with some jabs sometimes. I believe it was against Randy Costa. Let me double check that. Well, unfortunately, it's too far back, but I think it could have been Tony Kelly, actually. Either way, he was having a problem with a jab in earlier fight in his career where he actually ended up winning, but it was in the second round when he had to deal with some adversity with the jabs. He eventually found his counters. He eventually went around, dipped around the shots, and found his own. So it's interesting. It really is an interesting fight, and both these guys are similarly ranked, and I'm honestly really undecided, to be honest. I've been thinking about this fight more than any of them, to be honest. So, I mean, Adrian Yanez is younger, but that doesn't mean much when it's practically the same. It's only by like 6 months. No, 9 months almost. And yeah, the attributes are pretty much the same. I'm not really going to base this prediction when the skills are pretty high level for both of them on the reach and the height. I'm not going to base it on that. Daniel Marcos does have pretty decent power. He did drop his last opponent twice, I believe. John Castaneda, I remember him dropping him twice in the fight. I believe it was in the first and the third. And it was a pretty competitive fight until he dropped him. Now, I don't rate John Castaneda too highly, to be honest. And even though it was a decent performance, I think that his leg kicks aren't nearly as good as Jonathan Martinez's. So Daniel Marcos, I actually don't think he's going to win this. I'm going to say Adrian Yanez, round 2 TKO. A lot of KOs and TKOs I'm predicting, but let's see how it goes. I think this is a good underdog. And moving on, we have Vitor Petrino versus Dustin Jacoby. Can I speak? Can I speak properly? What the heck is up with me? Dustin Jacoby. I'm not basing this off of the losses. I'm basing this off of the fact that he doesn't have the best chin. And yes, he's a better technical kickboxer, but Vitor Petrino can mix things up to the grappling and then come with a KO punch upstairs. Similar to, I think it was Modestas Bukauskas. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I think he went to the grappling over halfway through the first round in his fight versus Modestas Bukauskas. And then in the second round, he got the KO punch with Modestas Bukauskas, maybe a little more worried about the takedown and hesitant and slower. So I think that this is kind of going to be a similar one. I think that Modestas, similar to Dustin Jacoby, is a little bit better on the technical kickboxing. We saw that Dustin Jacoby was outdoing, Khalil Roundtree And Khalil Roundtree went on to do great things with the Alex Pereira fight, but I think that Vitor Petrino is gonna have the huge power advantage. I think that Dustin Jacoby is for sure a better kickboxer, but I mean his Kenny Nezuchukwu fight showed that. But I don't see him having much for Vitor Petrino in the power department that would deter Vitor Petrino, especially in the later rounds, to start going for it more. Now, he did have a couple decisions, I think, against, I know Tyson Pedro, and that's a bit of a iffy performance. And Anton Tocoli was not a great one either, because that was also a decision, and we saw that Tyson Pedro KO'd him, Ibo Aslan KO'd him, so it's a very, it's actually a pretty decently interesting fight, and it's closer than the odds suggest, but yeah, I think Vitor Petrino should be the pick, and I'm going to go with a round 2 TKO. Could be another decision, though. Definitely could see that happening. And we move up to Manel Kape versus Bruno Silva. Now, this one I went really back and forth on as well. This is the second most interesting one to me. There's actually quite a few interesting fights on this card. It's definitely a bit of an underrated one. And I think that Manel Kape should get this done, although I do think that Bruno Silva is a sick underdog. I would not be surprised at all, to be honest. It's just that Manel Kape, I do think that he beat Mohamed Mokaev, and Mohamed Mokaev definitely deserves the title shot on paper because he on paper did beat Manel Kape. I'm sounding like Anthony Smith now, but it's true. On paper, he did beat Manel Kape. Mohamed Mokaev, I mean, he's the only interesting matchup that, what was it, Alejandro Pantoja hadn't fought, so they should definitely bring him back, but that's besides the point. He's not in the division right now, at least in the UFC. So what we're going to do is pick Manel Kape not because he beat Mohamed Mokaev, although I do think that that is a style, the kicking style that Mokaev did on Manel Kape to beat Manel Kape. I do think that's the style. But Bruno Silva, he could catch him. He could get a good uppercut. We saw against Cody Durden, I believe, there was an uppercut. Let me double check there. I believe it was an uppercut. Yep. And I mean, for sure, he has a great versatility as well with his jiu-jitsu. I believe against Tyson Nam even, he got a sub. Yeah, and he's definitely got some versatility, but I think that Manel Kape, his boxing and his fundamentals and his counters, especially his counters against Dos Santos, was it? Felipe Lima, actually. Felipe Dos Santos, that's right. His counters on the back foot were crazy. He did get hurt a few times in that fight, but that's just because Felipe Lima was going for it, I think. I think it was really just a moment where it was a bit of a rocky moment for him where he felt like he wasn't expected to go out there and do very good, and he ended up doing pretty good. So I think that's why he actually did decent. And ultimately, I think that Manel Kape's fundamental boxing and counters is going to be good enough, and Bruno Silva has a good enough chin to survive those counters, even though Manel Kape has some good power. So I think this is going to be a decent matchup, but I'm going to go with Manel Kape by decision. And most of his fights do go by decision, honestly. He does have some decent KOs, but it's against a subpar competition. Like Ode Osborne, he got a KO, and someone that's cut from the UFC now who was from Kazakhstan. I forgot the name. He had like a bowl cut. It's those guys that'll KO. But yeah, decision. Billy Q versus Cub Swanson. Now, I was looking at them in the face-offs, and I didn't realize how much taller Billy Quarantillo is than Cub Swanson. He looks more like 5'11 compared to 5'8. I think that the reach seems to be about the same. I do think that's accurate, but I think the size from Billy Quarantillo, it's not good that he is not going for takedowns in recent fights. I did see that Weasel pointed that out. However, I think, honestly, Cub Swanson, yeah, he is the better fundamental striker for sure, but in close fights, for one, he is losing, and like against what was it, Andre Fili, against those guys who are not the best, not the highest level kickboxers, he is having close competitive fights. While I understand this is Dan Ige, but he's KOing Andre Fili in the first round. And I say this to say, Billy Quarantillo, I understand that he lost to Yusuf Zalal, but look at how good he is now. And Billy Quarantillo does have a decent striking. people are saying that he didn't go for a takedown, by the way, or the stats are saying that he didn't go for a takedown against Edson Barboza. Billy Quarantillo did go for a takedown. He just got KO'd from going for the takedown with a knee. And yeah, that wasn't a great look. And the Yusuf Zalal performance wasn't great either, but we see now that Yusuf Zalal is pretty good. And even on the feet, he dropped Jack Shore. Now, I understand that he retired now, so, I mean, it's really hard to say if that was sort of a great win for Yusuf Zalal, but it's it's three finishes in a row for Yusuf Zalal, so clearly he is a good prospect. But I say all this to say, I think that Billy Quarantillo is going to go for takedowns, and I don't think that the knees from Cub Swanson, or the kicks, or the uppercuts, whatever else he's going to try and do to stop the takedowns, I don't think it's going to be enough. I just don't think he has the takedown defense, and Billy Quarantillo can keep it on the fence if he needs to. And he beat a decent Damon Jackson back when he was still decent, I feel. Alexander Hernandez even, and Damon Jackson, yeah. Like, these are not great wins, but they're for outside of the rankings fighters. This is okay. They're okay, and Cub Swanson, in the meanwhile, he is having very close fights with, I mean, Hakeem Dawodu, I thought that he lost personally. It was a close fight. I thought unanimous was a little egregious. And Darren Elkins, he's very over the hill. I don't even rate that win at all. I think that this is going to be a decision for Billy Quarantillo. I think that he looks physically stronger in the weigh-ins, and I think that he's going to use that to his advantage. He looks way bigger, personally, from what I've seen. I mean, I don't think it's a personal thing. I think it's just the eye test. You could tell that he's just bigger. So, decision for Billy Quarantillo. And then Joaquin Buckley. Everybody's saying round 3 TKO. I'm going to say round 4. I think that this is going to be similar to the Kamaru Usman fight. I actually do think that Colby Covington, or both the Kamaru Usman fights, except for the fact that Colby Covington's not going to get dropped super early. I do think that it is going to be similar to both the Kamaru Usman fights. Colby, honestly, I actually do think, as I was saying, he does have better striking, in my opinion. I do. I think he has a little bit better striking. I think Joaquin Buckley is a little too wild sometimes, and sometimes that works out for him. Sometimes he just jumps in and then he clotheslines Wonderboy Thompson, and then he gets the KO. And sometimes he gets KO'd by Alessio Di Cirio, I believe that's his name, the Italian guy who head kicked him at middleweight. People forget about him. People forget, man. But it's true. I mean, people forget that Joaquin Buckley had a 50-50 career at middleweight, and now he's on a 5-fight win streak at welterweight, but, I mean, I do think that he's going to have to resort to takedowns. He's going to have to mix things up. He's going to have to use kicks. He's going to have to use a head kick. I mean, we saw that he does go for head kicks. We saw that against even... I mean, I know that we saw the highlight one that's being replayed over and over again, but we also saw the... against Wonderboy, he even though it was just more of maybe a feint or maybe to get Wonderboy thinking about head kicks, he did sort of do a head kick, but it was more like a flimsy one. You know, like Lucas Tracy calling Sean Strickland's teeps a flimsy teep. It was more like that. It was more like to just get the opponent thinking about it. He didn't really, I don't know if he even landed it. Rewatching the fight, it didn't seem like, but we know that Joaquin Buckley against also a slightly shorter guy in Colby Covington, because he is shorter and he's not going to be as rangy, we do know that he is going to be able to land those kicks better, and he just needs to mix things up a lot, because Colby Covington, I do think that his striking is very underrated. I mean, people were saying that, Kamaru Usman's striking is really good. Remember that? And we have some people now saying that Colby Covington's striking is trash, and it always was. I'm like, do you guys forget? Like, I understand that Colby Covington's trash talk is not usually backed up, but he does have good striking, and he does have good cardio, but the issue with picking Colby Covington in this matchup, because I do think I would pick Colby Covington a year ago, I really do, but the big issue is he's coming in on, like, what, 3 weeks notice, something like that? He's not fully in the sport anymore. He was playing poker. MMA Guru interview showed that. He was just very interested in poker, and it's not a great look, because in this sport, like, the guy who fought something like 4 months ago is going to be more interested. 2 months ago. I mean, yeah, this guy's been crazy active, Joaquin Buckley, and I do think that Joaquin Buckley does have good boxing, but Colby Covington's straight punches are better. So I do think that Colby Covington can win 2 of the first 3 rounds, and then Joaquin Buckley's just gonna end up, I don't know, he's gonna get like a big right hand or maybe a head kick, or maybe he's gonna fake a takedown into a overhand or an uppercut. I don't know, man. I really don't know how he's gonna um, finish precisely, but it's going to be something wild and it's going to come out of nowhere. Even though we expect him to KO Colby Covington, it is going to technically come out of nowhere. It's just a matter of how that's going to be the surprise. And Colby Covington, I do actually want him to win because it would be fun, and it would be funny to see the people who have been trashing on him lately because he did have a mediocre performance against Leon Edwards. It would be fun for them to see, oh, he's actually good, and we overestimated his amount of, I guess, trash, overhyped sort of performances. I guess you know what I'm trying to say. These people who have been like, oh, because he had a performance where he lost 4-1 against Leon Edwards, who was a good champion, a decent champion. People are gonna be like, oh, see, he was people. The people who were saying that, the people who were saying, oh, you see, he was never anything. This was a terrible performance. If he gets this done, this would be really satisfying to see them come up with some sort of an excuse like, oh, but it was this, it was that. I don't know. I just think it would be fun. I think it would bring some more energy back. But Joaquin Buckley win would also bring some energy back to the division because there's so many prospects, so many contenders. That's why I made that video, why welterweight's great again. And I do think that Colby Covington can get this done. But one more thing we have to consider, that even if, whether true or not, Colby Covington says that he did have an injury in that fight against Leon Edwards. That is something that we're looking at, okay? A foot injury, it doesn't matter if it was a hand injury or an arm injury or what, but he says a foot injury. That's going to be a problem, okay? I don't know if he'll be able to shoot takedowns as good. I think, yes, a year off around is going to be very good. Around a year off for him is going to be really good for the recovery of that injury, but he just doesn't even seem the same. He's like not even trash talking anymore. He's not got the same punchlines. He's not got the same charisma. I just don't feel like he has the same energy. I like Colby Covington, and I want him to go and say a lot of nonsense on the mic again. I think that would be hilarious, but I don't see it. So round 4 KO, maybe an uppercut, maybe another clothesline overhand right or something, maybe another head kick, maybe he gets a takedown and then he lands a vicious elbow and it just can't get any further into the 5th round, or the corner stops it because of that nasty elbow, and maybe a cut, right? But this is my pick, and I hope you all have a good one. I hope you enjoyed my picks. This is Masks MMA. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I'll be sure to let you guys know what MMA Guru content for the clips I do next and what improvements I will do to the channel to improve the quality. Maybe I'll do a face cam like I said. Thank you so much for watching. Masks MMA out.